The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
The apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." The Lord replied, "Were your faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you. Which of you, with a servant plowing or minding sheep, would say to him when he returned from the fields, 'Come and have your meal immediately'? Would he not be more likely to say, 'Get my supper laid, make yourself tidy, and wait on me while I eat and drink? You can eat and drink yourself afterwards'? Must he be grateful to the servant for doing what he was told? So with you, when you have done all that you have been told to do, say, 'We are merely servants. We have done no more than our duty.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, Lord Jesus Christ.
If our faith was the size of a mustard seed, we could say to the mulberry tree, or the sycamore tree as it's sometimes called in the other Gospels, "Be uprooted and plant yourself in the sea." There the Lord is speaking truly. Our faith is the most important gift, and we must exercise it in a supernatural way throughout our life to please God and come to salvation. And to such a level that even if it were only a tiny seed, we could say to a tree, and apparently the sycamore tree puts its roots out horizontally about 60 feet, numerous meters, and there is very difficult to uproot, and of course impossible to plant in the sea. If our faith were alive, we would be capable of such things, if also God willed it. My brothers and sisters, in a time of difficulty in the world, our faith is the most precious gift that we have been given. And that implies our hope, it implies our charity. When I say faith, I mean the whole gift of being Catholic. And we must treasure it above all. And we must live of it in depth. Especially, we must do this in family life. It's so vitally important that parents set the right ambience within the family so that the faith that they want to have growing in the souls of their children is able to bear fruit and come to full fruition. Because if we don't be very, very proactive, and if we are not extremely concentrated in trying to do this for our children, the distractions and other options, including the temptations of the world, will certainly win out in a time like ours. The culture is certainly not Christian, we know that. And thereby, the ideas at large in the culture are not in the truth so often. The ways of living are not often pleasing to God, nor in accord with human nature. The pursuit of a material-based happiness, either psychological happiness or even happiness only for the lower levels of the body, is often the key driver for most people today in their lifestyles. And this requires incredible effort in the opposite direction and careful protection of children. I grew up in a time in the 1980s where much of these ideas were at large in the world. And it was only by a miracle that I was able to come back to the church and to my faith. A big conversion at the end of my schooling. But my education in terms of morality, my education in terms of virtue, my education in terms of the faith was essentially not there. I grew up as a teenager adopting the ways of the world. And that is what will happen to our young people today if we do not concertedly, with clear effort, with clear vision in the family, educate them in right morals, in the virtues required to live those morals, and in the truths of our faith and the practice of our faith. My brothers and sisters, and especially parents, you know this, but I want to take the moment to encourage you to never allow just these things to drift according to their own momentum. You have a very serious responsibility given to you by God to teach your children true morals, to educate them in the virtues, and especially to teach them the faith and practice the faith in your family. If you do not do this, your children will find their morals from the world, from possibly friends who do not share these things, and it will mainly come at them through the internet and through the social media and the devices today. And there is a battle, there is a war being waged for the souls of our children, for the lives of our children. The bad ideas in the world is actually very honest about it, amazingly. All of the worst end of it is where the so-called drag queens are not afraid to say they want to indoctrinate the children and read to them in the libraries. The whole homosexual lobby, and it is a true lobby. It is a political movement. It's very aggressive, very militant, and in fact very nasty, has said openly, we are coming for your children. These ideas are now embedded at large in many of our state institutions. And thereby, not only must you educate your children in the true way of life, both humanly and at a Christian level, but you must protect them. You must protect them from being indoctrinated as they are young and have impressionable minds and impressionable sensitivity. If you do not do this, and your children lose the faith and end up living deeply immoral lives, God will hold you responsible. And there, it's true for me, God will hold me responsible insofar as I don't do my job as a priest, but it's also true for parents. There you must create in the family a protective environment, and you must educate your children from a young age in being selfless, in being virtuous. Teach them the ethic of work, learning to do chores and serving others. at the more mild end of the worst elements of the culture, and this is what happened to me, is that I was just formed by the world to be essentially a narcissist. If we let our children run and we don't impart the right Christian morals to them and the means they need, the world will make of our children the worst narcissists in the history of humanity, thinking that the whole world owes them happiness, owes them a house, owes them a living, owes them an easy life, owes them pleasure whenever they want it, owes them everything, including the convenience of doing away with their own children should they get in the way. The way in which the modern times has justified abortion, with all the false arguments that I'm sure most of us in the church know well, is and has created the worst narcissists in the history of the world, where in order to satisfy our own pleasures, irresponsibly so, and to take no responsibility for our actions, we are willing to murder children at the service of that self-centeredness. That is pure narcissism, selfishness that we have created in the culture. And there, Christian parents, normal, common sense, human parents, you have a serious responsibility in the face of such powerful forces coming at your children through multiple mechanisms. You must teach them at home the value of service, of looking after one another, going beyond ourselves. And the family is supposed to be a school of love where we learn to share, look out for the other one, deny ourselves, sacrifice our immediate pleasures, go beyond ourselves and look out for the other ones, obey and let go of our own will in the moment. All of these things must be directly, not just implicitly, but directly imparted to children today. To teach them, you are not the center of the world. You are not to be worshipped. Only God is worshipped. And your position is within a group, within a community, and within a family. And you must learn by your own responsible choices to put yourself second to others. And there we can only do that insofar as parents guide the formation of a child to grow into a position where they can be virtuous, develop interior qualities and strengths where they can indeed go beyond themselves for the sake of the Lord in their faith and for the sake of others in their faith and the sake of others in their human formation. So vitally important. And this education must begin at a young age. There's no doubt when a baby's just born, it has to eat every 2 hours, and there everything is at the service of its biological life. But there's a phase that it comes out of where it begins to move around. And there, yes, parents must say no to their children and learn to say no strongly at times. Not just give way and think, my wonderful child wants to do this, I'll let them do whatever they want. And there the child is indeed a kind of idol that's worshipped. There must be guidelines for the formation and discipline of a child as they grow. And the basic rhythm of family life does that, but it needs to be very clearly taught that a child needs to know that this is the right way to find happiness, to be selfless and look out for the good of others and to serve God is the recipe for real interior happiness and real happiness and success in life. To only pursue one's own dreams in a selfish way without regard for a bigger perspective is indeed another form of the narcissism of our time. Nothing wrong with encouraging our children to have goals and pursuits and dreams and to excel in what they want, but not at the expense of understanding the social responsibility that we all have. And of course, our primary end is God, and the main responsibility we have in our faith is towards Him. And there, all of the education for children must be enveloped in this Christian ethos to love God, to serve Him, to follow Him, to include Him in our plans. Parents, you must encourage your children to include God in their plans, to consult Him for their dreams for life, to make sure that their plans are in accord with the laws of God and their Christian faith. The worst disaster that can befall a young person who's been brought up in a Christian and Catholic environment is to exceedingly succeed in all the worldly pursuits and lose their faith in the process. Stop practicing their faith and think that God is irrelevant. That is a disaster of enormous proportions. And if people remain in it, they indeed will lose their salvation. And there, my brothers and sisters, so vitally important that the family, especially for the children in their younger years, be formed directly by you as parents. You must teach them the Christian moral code, the commandments and all the other sub-commandments that follow them, very clearly and constantly help them choose these things for their own well-being. You must impart to them the moral teaching of the faith as well as the mystical teaching of the faith. What we believe in Christ and how real it is. And I would add this, as much as you can, as your children become capable of their own rational thoughts, you must help them realize not just the truths of the faith and their beauty, but also the errors of the world. You must help them see how the faith is real, how what we teach is beautiful and wise, and it will lead to happiness, and the world's ideas are wrong and erroneous. And there it requires effort to search out good resources, sometimes good YouTube videos, to expose the fallacies of our time. And there you set up a protective barrier for your children, that they see that what you've told them isn't just your family tradition, isn't just a cultural mechanism, it isn't just also the personal ideas of the parents, but it is the truth for all of us. And thereby you help them grow into choosing themselves personally the faith to live by it and the moral code that associates and walks with the faith and is given through the faith. This whole idea today of what's called gentle parenting, of just letting children find their own way, no, this is not the way education for children works. You as parents, all parents, must exercise authority over your children. And at times you have to guide them strongly and say no to them and help them to choose the right path and the right things. And when they have done wrong, they must be corrected. And they must be corrected, sure, in a loving, parental, fatherly and motherly way, but very clearly so that they understand. It's like a little young plant, a sapling growing up. It often needs a straight stake in the ground next to it to direct it to grow in the right direction. Parental authority given to you by God is for that purpose, so that your children grow to have a strong faith, but also a moral backbone, that they know where they stand and what they believe, where they have come from and where they are going. And it's you, my brothers and sisters who are parents. It is your responsibility to give this to your children. It won't happen naturally. If we let a child go according to its own whims and never input any real loving service of education, they will become a little wild animal. It is true, a child brought up without any guidance will become the most selfish little monster there is because of the wounds of original sin. It is so vitally important that these things are given to children so that they can grow properly in the right direction. And there also the virtues. And that begins, as we well know, with all the little mechanisms of teaching them to serve, to not just be wanting instantaneous gratification of their momentary desires. This is the wrong way forward. No doubt children need to play. They develop their imaginations in play, and all of that is vitally important. And from time to time, no doubt, they need their treats. They need their happy moments. We all know this. But if that's all we feed them, they will become the worst of human beings, and they will become very distant Christians, if not atheists, because of the influences of the world. We cannot rely on the schools. We cannot rely on the mechanisms that we used to. In fact, quite the opposite. The influences of pornography coming through the devices everywhere at every hour of the day is pernicious and widespread. Parents, on that score, as you know well, you must be extremely vigilant to the use of devices in your own household. There must be protective mechanisms on the Wi-Fi to block any access to such material, because often children are very good at getting tangled up in these things and not being honest about them. And parents, if they're not careful, don't realize that these poisons have entered their home and they don't realize it. That's there in the home, but even in the school. And when your children are at the homes of their friends, there you have to all that is in your power to be vigilant in terms of the way that devices are accessed and used. Addiction to pornography is widespread. It is a terrible, terrible pandemic, a sickness that is abroad. It is like an iceberg. The main part of it is submerged. And because of this and the wrecking of lives that it produces, it breaks marriages. It wrecks human beings and renders them incapable of selfless love because of the selfishness that is built into this horrible menace. It will do enormous damage unless you work very hard to protect your children from a terrible, terrible moral poison today. I know it's a bit of a heavy topic this morning. I know that people get a little bit upset sometimes and think, where's the good news? But I'm sorry, Mass on Sunday is to preach, certainly, many times, on the joy and consolation and happiness of the gospel. But if we don't address these kinds of things and we don't speak honestly about them, they remain a difficulty that spreads further, and people often are unaware. The reason that so many Catholics have fallen away from the faith and gone to join other churches is because we have failed as pastors to address some of the key things that need to be said from the pulpit. Only speaking about the good news of salvation in Christ and never giving catechetical instruction, teaching the whys of the moral teachings of the church, does nobody any favours, and is part of the widespread problem today. Let us then, my brothers and sisters, ask ourselves, do a good examination of conscience, all of us, me included. What are the things that I need to look at and reassess in terms of the responsibilities that God has put on my shoulders? And there, God is merciful. He will give us light always and help us make the right choices, the right steps, the right corrections if necessary. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.